So, hello and welcome to my talk. Today we're going to talk about fail fast, fail often, or how to make a safety a prerequisite for your teams. I would like to start with storytelling. In this case, I was thinking, since I'm traveling to Switzerland, why not to start with some story which is connecting my country, Sweden, and Switzerland. And I literally Googled and found the funny moment which happened with one of the biggest and most famous Swedish company called Spotify last year in the April, as far as I remember, when they basically launched on the New York's public stock exchange. And for some reason, when they want to honor the company from Sweden, instead of putting on the Swedish flag, they put on Swiss flag. So then, after maybe 15 minutes, they realized that there was a mistake, and they put it the right one, Swedish one. Yeah. So, in short, I would say it might be wrong. It might not be wrong to maybe sometimes think that Sweden and Switzerland are a bit similar, because we both have a stunning nature, I think, and also very awesome skiing resorts, and of course some culture of neutrality behind our two countries. So a little bit about myself. My name is Nataliya. I have more than 12 years experience working in a tech. Also, currently I'm working as agile coach at a Swedish company called iZettle. And also, in my spare time, I'm an organizer of the Go Agile Meetup Stockholm. So, another story which I want to continue with. Also, it happened about a year ago, but this time it was in United States of Hawaii in United States, where by mistake a lot of citizens of that state receive actually the missile alert message on all their broadcasts, phone, mobile operators, television, radio, everywhere, about ballistic missile threat inbound to Hawaii state. So literally people was in shock, in stress, and they was trying to find a place to be safe. So they left their houses, their work, and was looking for some safe place or bunkers. Apparently, there was a problem. It was, again, employee mistake who, instead of pushing the right link about the drill, pushed the wrong one, which was then eventually tweeted in a lot of the networks. And instead of actually pressing the PACOM state-only link, he actually was, instead of pressing drill, he pressed PACOM. Again, by mistake. So this reminds me again of some trouble with maybe not being safe enough to actually do a mistake and press the wrong link. And several weeks after, there was a huge investigation, and there was a lot of articles in the media about this investigation in the United States, where they actually was trying to cooperate with the employee who pressed the wrong link. And for some reason, employee was, of course, rejecting this and not cooperating. So this leads me to observation on why people are afraid to actually make a mistake or fail, and why they are not cooperative afterwards. Imagine yourself as that employee in the Hawaii who was actually working and trying to do his best or her best, and in the end got suffered from the management and from this investigation, and probably was even in the court to talk about the situation. And some people, of course, jokingly saying that it's about the UX and that it was a not really good interface, as you saw on the Twitter. But in the end, it's about fail is about fear as well. And in this case, it was a lot of fear around this mistake. So we, as a humans, day by day, experience a lot of fears and experience a lot of blame. Even if you are only working with the computers or writing the code, usually you have a lot of situation when the fail can happen, and also where people around you or in your team might blame you for that. So, and in that case, blame is more important than gratitude, and fear leads to scapegoating. And also our bosses have a tendency, when something happens, trying to find who is guilty instead of taking the responsibility and protecting their employees. And we, again, full of fears. Doesn't matter are we working in which industry are we working, or we are just developers. So as a developer, sometimes we're fearing to have a bugs or mistakes in our code, or having maybe not really optimistic or really happy pull request reviews on the GitHub, or also fear of fixing someone else's code, so-called legacy problem. And of course, sometimes it's a fear of deploy on late evening on Friday. So another thing about fear, it's actually that it kills the most important thing that a lot of IT, at least, and startup companies trying to achieve, it's innovation. And sometimes, because of those fears, and because of focusing on only them, and because of not experimenting, we're coming up to this situation when we are so busy managing impressions that we don't contribute to innovation. And what's the opposite, you will ask? Well, it's of course psychological safety. Why? Because it should be safe to admit our own mistakes, even if we got maybe not a great comments on the pull request or whatever. Safe to be imperfect, actually, and safe not to have all the answers sometimes, and safe to not have it all together. Or like acknowledge that, okay, I'm not feeling quite good today, I'm not happy person today. So psychological safety, according to scientist Amy Edmondson, it's a belief that one will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, concerns, questions, or mistakes. Now I want to focus more on how we can avoid, or maybe actually not avoid, but make a safety as a prerequisite and maybe avoid so painful results of our mistakes. I will start with the management practices first. Some of them I listed here, but we will start with model curiosity. And the model curiosity, it's basically saying that frame problems as learning experience and not execution tactics, which in reality means that instead of blaming someone after the mistake, like we saw with Hawaii accident, so instead we should focus on learning on the mistake and maybe ask more questions on how we can avoid it next time, or how we can help our employees to actually manage to avoid it, or at least be loud about the mistake or the possibility of mistake. Do you know this guy, by the way? Anyone heard about him? Okay, so his name is Taiichi Ono. He is from Japan, and he is the inventor of Toyota production system. Probably you heard about it. It's basically how Toyota used to build their cars, and a lot of stuff they built back in the times. And in 1975, he actually invented the approach called root cause analysis. What does it mean? It means when you have a failure or you have some issue, let's say on production line, you ask 5 simple questions. And those 5 simple questions always starts with the why. So you start asking why this happened here. Then you can go to more details, and in the end, on the 5th attempt to ask why question, you might get the real issue or root cause of the failure. Another exercise is called Just Like Me. It's quite simple. It's based on our psychology as humans. And it's about thinking when someone had a situation with some fail or mistake, just think about that person and try to imagine yourself in his shoes. For example, how you might felt that moment, or what would you do that moment, or what would you expect other people around you to help you with to prevent this. And then another one is safely fail quickly, which is basically you should be able to be prepared for mistakes, for issues which might happen in your production systems or maybe in your life, and you should just have a safety net, as it is in this picture. that will prevent you or help you to not have a lot of coincidences of your fail. And in the end, you should also always remind yourself that you can't fix the people, but you can fix systems and processes to better support them and to make the right choices. One of those is a culture of postmortems. This came originally from Google, and it is saying that if some incident is happening on production and you want to learn on it rather than to blame someone, you should run postmortem exercise with your team or within your organization. So basically, you need to define some criteria before an incident occurs. For example, it might be use visible downtime, data loss, resolution time above some threshold, and etc. And use the monitoring tools to actually be able to set those criteria. And then you can run a short exercise, which is called lightweight postmortem, or sometimes actually people are calling it also incident analysis. And then you can actually follow the short rules from Google, which they published in their Google engineering blog about running those kind of activities. So basically, you focus on 3 important parts. First one is just stating why it happened. And this is the phase where you can use famous 5 whys approach by Taiichi Ohno. Then you can have problem prevention, where you generate together in your team or with a group who is doing actually postmortem exercise on how you can prevent next time this situation happening in the production. And the last one, it's actually time to fix, which is asking the question, how might we act faster on similar problems in the future? Now, I want to switch to more engineering practices of preventing blame on the failure or to enable safety as a prerequisite. So it's quite a huge list, but I wanted to focus mostly about on the questions like automate and enable low-risk releases, some environmental-based release patterns on why and how to give a feedback as early as possible, and also some practices like pair and mock programming. So automate and enable low-risk releases. And here, I really would like to would really like to quote Jess Humble, who is saying that you should be able to get the changes out at any time safely, quickly, and sustainably without people burning out or working weekends or being a hero. Do you recognize yourself in these words? Okay. So how we can do that actually? Maybe we should start thinking of decoupling deployments from releases. From my previous experience, I noticed that a lot of, for example, execution or manager level people, they think that release it's the same as deploy. But in reality, if you ask some technical person who actually doing those releases, they will give you an explanation that a release is something that is planned accordingly across all the departments of the company. So usually it's sales and marketing who needs to be involved in the release process. But when it comes to deploy, it's solely technical stuff, which is, in essence, it's you copy your code from the test or whatever environment you're using currently or your development environment to production. So deployment should be easy, fast, and on demand, but release might take some more time, and that's normal. Then we have another one, patterns, which we can use. It's blue-green deployment and canary releases. In terms of blue-green deployments, this is again quite a good example on how you can actually release something quickly and without risking to lose a lot of customers if you have a mistake on production or some production issue. It's basically, you have 2 environments. One is called blue and another one called green. And by doing routing in the moment of your release or like your release cycle, you basically switch the router to the right environment. And you can have a previous state of your software on, let's say, blue environment and current state of your software on the green. And then you can easily roll back if you will need to. And then another practice, which is called canary releases. If you heard about it before, have you ever thought why it's called canary? It's because back to the 1928, there was a common practice of the miners to take a canary with them to be able to check the level of monoxide carbon and to be safe, actually, because canary was dying almost immediately if there was a scary level of carbon monoxide in the mine. And then, in essence, for software development, that means that this is actually a Facebook example. That means that you can have different environments prepared, and you can launch one of your feature or one of your version of the product to a particular group of the customers, or so-called small set of users, or maybe it's even internal testing for your internal employees. And Facebook actually used that a lot before. So they had internal version for the Facebook employees, and then they had a small group of customers on the production to test on, and then most users get the whole product later on. And again, it gives you continuous feedback. It's not that scary to do a new release, and you can get immediate feedback from your internal employees. And switching back to application-based release patterns. Those are maybe more famous, and maybe a lot of you actually using them currently in your work. It's feature toggles, dark launches, and dog fooding. Feature toggles, it's in essence, you can have a lot of small and big features, which you can actually choose between. Which one of them you want to show to your end customer or end user, or which one you want to hide. And by doing this, you can, if you have a very complex environment, for example, and you have regulation, and you are not allowed to launch certain features at the same time, then you can easily enable and disable them on the production system by using feature toggles. Dark launch, it's also one of the technique which is commonly used together with feature toggles, which is again based on the technical implementation of the flags. And based on this flags, you can choose again which group of the customers you want to release. One of the examples from the industry is like Facebook launched their famous chat, which is currently called Messenger back in 2008. So it was, original plan was actually built as less code as possible and reuse existing functionality and existing infrastructure. So what they did, they decided to do dark launch it first, so they chosen maybe several users, and they decided that each of those users will see only one friend in the messenger or in the chat. Surprisingly, I wasn't one of those. Many people asked me how they chosen you. I was also not aware that I'm the chosen, basically, because back in the times, people used to public releases, and if you got some new feature, then everyone around you always also get this feature for them. In this case, they again launch it only to some customers, and then they didn't build any new code. They only tweaked the UI to just so that people will see there is a pop-up saying, oh, welcome to Facebook chat. And only after seeing the reaction of users on that UI, they decided what exactly, in terms of functionality, they need to build on the backend. And also, they built internal system for dark launches and feature toggles, which is known as Gatekeeper. And a dog fooding. Behind this is also an interesting story on how back in the times Microsoft launched Windows NT. So they was doing a lot of preparations, fixing the bugs, stabilizing release, etc., etc. But then suddenly they realized that it costs them a lot to launch it and have a lot of customer complaints. So instead, they decided to give this food, imagine that Windows NT is a food, to their dog, and dog it's like employee. And then idea of this was also that if you will not eat your dog's food, probably no one will want to eat it. Neither your employee, neither your customer. Another important thing to not forget is to get the feedback on each step of your delivery. And this comes to the value of this feedback. Because if you know that you can prevent problem on the early stages, remember Toyota again, then you can actually have a less waste, and it might be still possible to deliver end product without major defects. And Toyota product line, actually, it's a good example because they provided their employees on each step of their work with a big red button, or it's also called cord, where if something is wrong in your, let's say, production line step, then you can actually press that cord, and all the production line stops. And everyone are trying to fix the problem first. Maybe it will be already lost, there will be some waste maybe on that step, but still, everyone are focused until they will not fix the problem on that step, and no waste will come on the next step, so that we are producing like more efficiently. And another one, my favorite one, is actually you should be able to get the feedback on each stage of your delivery by using continuous integration and delivery. Here I will not show probably anything new, but I think this picture perfectly describes the difference what is continuous delivery, integration, and deployment. And I would say that whatever you are doing right now, it might not be full continuous deployment, or only continuous delivery, or only integration. It still gives you a lot of powerful instrument for you to get the feedback early and to fix the problems early. And then some more soft practices. It's pair programming, famous one from XP. It's still relevant because then you are already showing your colleague with whom you are doing pair programming that it's a safe environment to do that together, that you don't feel like you're working in the silos, or you can't talk to each other, and you can easily actually have a conversation about what might be the coincidences of some of the decisions you are doing in the code. And another one, emerging practices, which is called mob programming. In this case, you have rotation of the person also who is writing the code, but then you can involve more team members in this activity. Because this person whom you see right now sitting on the chair, he might actually be front-end developer writing back-end code. At the same time, he might have around him a person from the product who is also involved in the writing code together. And then you see the different perspectives of the problem. And again, you have to be in the safe environment to be able to do this exercise together. Conclusions. Psychological safety exists when you are not afraid, be yourself, make mistakes, take risks, ask questions, and sometimes disagree. So, are you ready to make safety as a prerequisite in your teams? Thanks.